Greetings, my name is Odin from the Odin's Musings YouTube channel, and I'm here on behalf of Aura Crystals. Today I will be showing you how to do the flat odd count peyote, which is slightly different from our even count, which is commonly used to make flat bracelets like this. It is a fundamental stitch that you learn when you're beginning your jewelry making adventure, and with this knowledge you'll be able to apply it to a variety of different projects. For this video I'm going to be using two different colors of seed beads. I'm going to be using size 11 Delicas. You can use whichever seed beads you like. I just prefer when starting off to use Delicas because of the uniform cuts, and it makes a really nice even stitch so that you can tell exactly where things need to go. I'm using two contrasting colors in order to help me out while I'm doing the stitch. I'm using number 627, which is a silver-lined dyed aqua, and number 281, which is a inside dyed medium plum. You will also need a stop bead or a spring bead stopper, and I'm using a D-weight white Nymo. You can use whatever thread you feel comfortable using. And I'm using a size 12 needle, but you can also use a size 10 if you're more comfortable with that. A list of materials will be down in the description box, as well as links to where you can purchase supplies. We're going to start off by putting on a stop bead on our thread so that we don't have to worry about our beads falling off when we stitch the first row. So I'm going to pull it down, leaving about a 4-inch tail that we can work in later, and then I'm just going to pass back up through the bead again to secure it in place. And you can see that we have the thread wrapped around once. If you have the spring stopper, all you have to do is open it up and slide a thread through one of the gaps. Now, odd count peyote gets its name because there are an odd number of beads that we are working with in a total of 2 rows. Now, the stitch works very similar to even count peyote. There's just a difference when we're turning our threads. If you haven't watched our even count peyote video, please feel free to do so. There will be links in the description, as well as a card up in the right-hand side of the screen. So with any peyote stitch, we're going to start off by working with 2 rows at the same time. So in this example, I'm going to thread on an alternating pattern of my purple and green until I have 9 beads. And that is what we end up with. You will notice I have 4 green beads and 5 purple beads, making a total of 9, which is an odd number. I'm going to thread that down. In this example, all of my purple beads are going to be odd numbered rows, and all of my green beads are going to be even numbered rows. So we have rows 1 and 2 threaded onto our string. The next row is number 3, which is odd, so I'm going to use a purple bead. I've threaded that one on. I'm going to skip over the next purple bead and pass through the next green. So when I pull tight, I'm going to do a little bit of adjusting and flip the beads around so that I end up with the 2 beads right on top of each other. I'm going to repeat that by picking up another purple, skipping over the purple, and going through the next green. And now I have 2 stitches complete. Once more, adding on a purple, skipping over a purple on our thread, and going through the next green. Add 1 purple, skip over the next purple, and go to the next green. Now, if this was even count peyote, I would be ready to turn around, but I have 1 more bead loose that I need to attach. And we're going to want our rows to match, so I'm going to thread on 1 purple. So I'm going to pass through the last purple bead on the first row, so that we anchor it right on top of it. Now we need to turn our thread so that we end up coming out of this bead going towards the inside so we can add our green beads on top of that. We're basically going to do a figure 8 inside these 5 beads in order to end up where we want. So I'm going to pass through the next green bead so that I end up there. Then I'm going to pass up through the next purple bead. I'm going to then move up to this next purple bead here, go back through the green bead, and end up down on the very tip here. So we're going through 3 beads. From here, we go through 1, 2, 3. That makes the thread wrap around inside and wedges it in between this green bead and these 2 purple beads. As you can see, that thread hides inside the green. Now we move up to the top purple bead, and from there we can continue on the peyote stitch with the green beads. So from here, I pick up one green, and I move over to the next purple. One green, through the next purple. One green, through the next purple. And finally, our last green, through the last purple. Now, turning on this side is simple. All we have to do is add one purple bead and pass through the next green bead. And now we've added our next row. We're going to continue like that. Add one purple, go down, add one purple, go down, add one purple, and we go down our last bead, but now we need to turn our threads using the same technique. So, I add my purple. I'm going to pick up the next purple and green bead so that we put the bead that we added in place. Then I'm going to pass through the lower purple bead that is next to the green that we started from. Then we're going to wrap around and pick up 3 beads. The top purple, the green, and the lower purple. So that our thread disappears inside the beads. Finally, we'll turn our thread by passing through the topmost purple bead in the leftmost corner. Then we're ready to continue with our green row. Continue in this manner until you've added about an inch length on your flat beadwork, and then I'll show you how to end threads and attach new ones. So as you can see, this stitch is really good if you want to add borders on both sides of your piece that are the same color, and then do whatever intricate design you want in the center of it. Now to end your thread, you want to make sure you end up after you have finished an even number row, so you don't have to worry about turning your thread after you've added on your new thread. So in this case, it would be after I have finished my green set, and all I'm going to do is make a zigzag motion all the way down until I've reached the end of the next row. So my thread is coming out of the topmost purple on my right side. I'm just going to go down to the next purple and just kind of weave through beads in the project. So I've gone up a green, I'm going to go down another purple, up a green, down a purple. Sometimes you can pick up multiple beads at once, but don't worry if you can't do that, especially towards the end where there's more thread passes through because of all the turnarounds. And especially if you're using smaller beads, be careful when you're doing that so you don't snap a bead in the middle of your beadwork. And finally, like that, I have reached my end on the opposite side of my beadwork. Now, this is secure enough to cut right here, but if you're feeling anxious about it, you can always just turn your thread around and go back up another length if you want to. But from there, I'm just going to end my thread, and then you can also remove your stop bead and do the same thing on your tail end here. Now to add thread, it's basically the same thing, but we want to end up coming out of the bead that we ended at. So that's the topmost purple here. I'm going to start from this side and just kind of move in a diagonal upward motion until I've reached this point. I'm going to start down further so there aren't as many threads that I'm fighting with on the top here. So I'm going to pull my new thread through, leaving about an inch tail so that I can hold on to something in case I accidentally pull things too tight, and I don't want my tail to slip out. So from there, all I'm going to do is make my way upward until I reach the opposite side, going kind of in a zigzag as I go up a bead, down a bead, up a bead, down a bead, and then kind of upwards until I've reached the final bead. Like so. I pull this through, and from there I'm right back to where I started from when I ended my last thread. And this is nice and tight, this is nice and tight, so you're okay to cut the tail end. Then from here, I'm going to start my purple row again, just by adding one bead and passing through the green. And I'm at the end of my purple, so I turn my thread like I always do, going around those last 5 beads on the row. Turn around, and I can continue. So that is how you complete the odd count peyote stitch. It's very similar to even count, it's just there's a little bit of trickery when it comes to turning your threads on the odd side. And that is it for this lesson. Be sure you are subscribed to Aura Crystals to make sure you get updated as to when new patterns and tutorials come out. Thank you for joining me on this lesson. You can find all pertinent links to materials and supplies down below. If you'd like to see more of my work, feel free to check me out at Odin's Musings right here on YouTube or at odinsbeadhall.com.